taking a look at JavaFX from your Zybook, you don't really get a good feel for why you'd want to use JavaFX or why it exists in the first place. It kind of skips over those important details and just introduces you with a little bit of how to do some basic things. And when you start reading through the sections, there's really nothing new about it that Swing doesn't have. For example, Swing also has GUI stuff. Swing also has a grid layout. Swing has inputs and event handlers, and then Swing also has basic graphics. So why use JavaFX? Let's take a quick look at the history. So the first graphical user interface toolkit was called AWT, and this pretty much came out right with Java in 1995. And the main issue with AWT is it's platform dependent. So what that means is if you develop an application and you use AWT to make your user interface, if you have a button, your button will look completely different depending on whether or not it's being run on a Mac or a Windows machine or a Unix machine. So the look and feel of your graphical user interfaces is completely dependent on the operating system that's running it. That doesn't really sound like that big of a deal, but companies get pretty picky about the look and feel of their product, and they like to brand their product. So a lot of the times a company will want their product to look and feel exactly the same, regardless of whether or not it's being run on a Windows machine or a Mac machine. So Swing was a solution to this, and it came out shortly after AWT in 1996. And Swing is platform independent, so the user interface you make with Swing will look the same regardless of which operating system is running it. Additionally, Swing follows an architecture known as MVC, which is Model View Controller. I won't go into too much detail because this is a big topic and it's a really common design pattern. But essentially, the model is your underlying data. This can be a database containing a bunch of information. It's the underlying functionality of your program, and the view is kind of the entry point and the thing that users actually interact with, such as a graphical user interface or a website or what have you. So with MVC, rather than directly hooking up the graphical user interface to your underlying model, you introduce the third component known as the controller. So the controller just hooks these two together, and it makes a nice, clear, distinct separation between the front end of your application and the back end of your application. So, for example, you could have a single model, and your underlying model only has to talk to a single controller. But your controller could present your program to a website or a desktop application or a mobile phone. So that's a high-level view of MVC, And although Swing follows this architecture, it really only works well for desktop applications, which was fantastic given it was first released in 1996. But essentially now Swing is dead. So it's no longer being supported, which basically means Swing is not really going to be updated, or issues and bugs that are currently existent in Swing are not going to be fixed. It kind of just is how it is, and programs using Swing can still use them for a while, but it's just going to kind of sit on the shelf and decay. So JavaFX is the new thing, and it's basically Swing's replacement, and that was just released in 2008. So this is kind of the new and recommended way to go about making a graphical user interface with Java. So if you notice the time gap between 1996 and 2008 and now, we've introduced mobile phones, and a lot more things have web front ends rather than just being desktop applications. So one of the biggest things with JavaFX is it allows you to design an application that works on a desktop or a website or even mobile phones. So websites and mobile entry points are kind of a must with today's world. So web design and mobile application development are pretty big topics on their own. But for now, it's good to know that using JavaFX, we can do these things. So if you continue learning how to program, you definitely want to go with JavaFX over Swing. So additionally to this, it introduces a lot of other cool things, a lot more than I have listed here. But you get some pretty neat things like 3D graphics and sensor support and touch and gestures. So with sensor support and touch and gestures, that falls mostly under mobile, because with mobile phones we have all sorts of sensors. We have GPS, we have accelerometers, we have magnetic field sensors, light sensors, and all sorts of things. And if you think about the touch screen on your phone, there's different kinds of touch events and gestures that you'll see that you wouldn't really see on a normal desktop application. One example of this would be a swipe. So a swipe is where you touch the screen and then kind of just slide your finger in a specific direction. Those aren't really common on desktop applications using a mouse, but on phones it's really nice to have a library that can support the different kinds of gestures you see on touchscreens. And JavaFX has a lot more user interface tools you can use. So making nice looking applications with all sorts of cool effects and text and graphs and stuff is a lot easier using JavaFX than Swing. So there's all sorts of cool tutorials online, and I already have a video uploaded showing you how to enable JavaFX. So if you're interested, feel free to dig into these things.